Hi, my name is Steve Farney. I want to make this world a better place. If you're serious about making this world a better place too, please watch this video. Pay attention closely and turn the volume up. This presentation is called Competition versus Sharing as a Means of Distribution of Wealth and Resources. I will be identifying competition for resources as the root mechanism responsible for the unnecessary harm, waste, and destruction carried out by humanity, as well as demonstrating how sharing is the logical alternative that corrects the problem of a competitive model. This presentation contains copywritten material. Use of copywritten materials contained in this presentation are for education and training purposes only, in accordance with fair use as defined by Title 17 of the United States Code. This presentation contains a lot of ideas from the Zeitgeist film series, as that was the original inspiration for my work on this topic. The Zeitgeist movement was correct in that we need to eliminate the use of money, and now I can illustrate very clearly why that is the correct course of action. Though money is not the problem itself, use of money employs a mechanism known as competition for resources, and that's where the trouble is. Competition for resources doesn't even match our ideology. We teach our children to share, right? I mean, we want to be good people, we want our kids to be good people and kind to others. Yet, our entire world, the way we go about distributing resources, is based on competition, which is the opposite of sharing. What people don't realize is that competition for resources is an agreement that we are working against one another to acquire our share. If you work to secure a larger piece of the pie for yourself, someone else is coming up short on their slice. Competition for resources is a negative mechanism. It brings out the worst in humanity. It rewards exploitation and corruption. It also generates massive amounts of waste. There are many forms of physical waste caused by competition. One aggravating example, planned obsolescence, is where manufacturers push you to replace your stuff more and more frequently. Wasted physical resources is only half the problem. Let's talk about wasted time. You can never get back wasted time from standing in line or being put on hold, or from the largest waste of human labor and time on the planet, tracking ownership of money. The financial industry is a massive drain on human labor and time. Think about how many businesses and institutions exist for the purpose of moving and tracking ownership of money. Banks, investment firms, the stock market, credit card companies, the Federal Reserve and IRS, the US Treasury Department, foreign currency trading companies, collection agencies, the list goes on and on. And not just the financial industry has to deal with this gargantuan task. Some companies need entire departments to deal with tracking money. Others can get away with just a few staff members dedicated to the cause. But some businesses actually outsource the task and pay other people to track their money for them. Moving and tracking ownership of money isn't just something that we do while we're at work either. Think about how often you have to move and track ownership of money in your personal life. There's a long list here. The last term is budgeting. That one's a big one, so I want to take a closer look at that. The application of a budget adversely affects every consideration that goes into a product or project. No one wants to sacrifice on the quality or quantity of resources that go into creating something, so why do we do things this way? Our entire lives we've been told that money makes the world go round, but the opposite is actually true. Money cripples us. Money forces us to do what makes dollars instead of what makes sense. What is money really good for anyway? You can't eat it. Money is a tool. In the competitive model, money is a liquid commodity that is traded in the marketplace, which is an improvement on the restrictions of bartering. It increases the rate of distribution, but this also accelerates the rate of the negative impacts caused by using a competitive model. Here's a list of some negative effects that we can trace back to competition for resources. If you continue thinking about this, Over time, you'll realize that almost every problem in your life can be traced back to humanity embracing a competitive model instead of sharing as a species. There is massive waste in every industry. Why, with as many people starving in the world, are we dumping piles of produce and other food in the trash? Well, in this particular industry, food producers lobby the government to subsidize their losses. Government uses our tax money to purchase excess food that doesn't sell at the market, they claim, to keep the food supply consistent. This encourages suppliers to always send more than what is needed to the market. So why not give expired and ugly food to the poor? Well, if food producers and retailers give away the food that is aesthetically unappealing or past its prime, then they're satisfying the demand of their customer for free, which leads to lower sales volume and devaluation of their product. Less than 8% of America's population is involved in agriculture and the actual production of food. We already produce enough food to feed the entire planet, but if we did, the food industry would not be nearly as lucrative, so starvation is economically driven. There's no problem with the food supply. The scarcity of food is maintained artificially for profits. Homelessness is another financially driven problem. In America, vacant homes outnumber the homeless population 6 to 1. We certainly have the means to solve this problem, but money is in the way. I could go on and on about how competition causes all the problems in the world. If you're with me on this so far, though, let's take a look at the logical alternative to competing for resources: sharing. As I mentioned, competition is a negative mechanism. Well, sharing is a positive mechanism. So think of it like this. Every time resources are distributed, currently the mechanism is negative, and so the process of distributing those resources will always have negative impacts. Negative in, negative out. But a positive mechanism will yield positive results every time resources are distributed. So what do I mean when I say sharing as a means of distribution, and what does that look like? Well, it's a change to the market structure. When you ask for something, it will be freely given, with the confidence that when the giver asks for something, it will be freely given to them as well. There will be no checkout lines, no bills, no contracts. We would still go about producing the same goods and services we currently have, but without the hassle of exchanging money. The labor freed up from ending the use of money can be utilized in many ways. We can allocate labor to helping those who need it the most, and we can also bolster the labor that goes into producing goods and services. There will be a massive increase in goods and services provided to sections of the world that, for financial reasons, could not access those resources before. People from the financial industry will likely help out in establishing services and infrastructure to developing regions. Obviously, getting everyone on board with sharing is not going to happen overnight. It should be a slow enough process to allow people enough time to prepare and plan for this. I've given this a great deal of thought, applied logic and reason, and I'm not saying that this is how it will go, but this is what I envision. On day one, everyone who worked in finance can report to other businesses that provide goods and services that are still in demand. If you work at a job that provides goods and services, start training new employees as they arrive, and feel free to start implementing changes that make sense to your industry, now that budgets are no longer an issue. Order proper safety gear for employees, substitute cheap and inexpensive parts and ingredients for high quality ones, slow down production and build things to last. Look for ways to automate more, decrease human labor demand, and recruit help where it's needed the most. I think it goes without saying that on day one, the homeless and poor get to go shopping. Society will take care of those who need it the most. Don't worry though, we're going to be raising the standard of living for the entire planet. Here's how we improve the standard of living. Sharing eliminates the waste caused by competition. Wasted time standing in line, being on hold, and tracking money will be recovered. Motives that drive planned obsolescence, artificial scarcity, and most forms of waste will be eliminated. All this recovered waste means there's more to go around, and without budget restrictions in the way, everything will improve in quality. Okay, so the poor get to go on a shopping spree, but what about the rich? They're going to resist a redistribution of wealth. I mean, they fought to keep things like this for many, many years. They're also terrified of a change like this, as there are a lot of angry people who might seek to take revenge once they gain the resources to do so and once the playing field is leveled. Well, if we really want to see this work, I think part of the reset should include a fresh start for everyone. Chalk up all previous corruption and crime to a faulty mechanism. Competition really is to blame, in my opinion, and I'm more interested in fixing the problem than I am in holding those accountable who thrived or caused harm within a system that rewards causing harm. Most of the resistance to this change will come from the wealthy, so I'd like to remove some of the motives to work against this and gain as much support for this idea as possible. If humanity were to evolve or flip this switch, you would be amazed at how quickly everything would improve. Moving and tracking the ownership of money would no longer be necessary. This frees up humanity of a massive drain on labor, time, and supplies. It would also eliminate tons of wasted paper from receipts, contracts, billing, account statements, etc. We would see an immediate massive decline in deforestation. So, would eliminating all those jobs be a good thing? Well, sharing changes society's priorities. So, in a sharing model, we can finally stop worrying about what makes money and do what makes sense. It would be the goal in a sharing world to reduce labor, not create jobs. So, in addition to freeing up a huge chunk of human labor by not tracking money anymore, automation would further cut down on even more of the labor demand. Automation would no longer be in conflict with human self-preservation, so instead it would benefit us to automate wherever and whenever possible. The way we evaluate a person's social status will change. In our current model, wealth is a serious status symbol. Wealth is a reflection of how much a person has taken from the world. A sharing planet would value people based on their contributions. Those who contribute and are productive are looked up to, while shopaholics who contribute nothing will be looked down on and likely shunned. Some people ask, what would motivate people to work in a world where everything is free? Well, despite the limitations of a competitive model, we still see people going out of their way to help others. We all want to make the world a better place. Do you really think that people will lack motivation to work in a world that actually takes care of us? A world that values you for you and doesn't put a dollar sign over your head? I mentioned wealth redistribution. Well, in a sharing world, money has no value. Theoretical control over assets that cannot be physically controlled would fade away. With no way to pay employees to secure excess assets, wealth hoarders will lack the means to maintain control of those assets. I'm not saying that anyone's going to get kicked out of their home, but you can really only live in one place at a time. So, fill one mansion or fill one home with as many possessions as you like. Just don't expect the rest of the world to respect your deeds and receipts to additional land and assets that you're not using. Currently, we donate our labor based on financial needs, which means the wealthiest people and organizations get access to more labor. And even though the poor need the most help, there's really no incentive to donate labor to helping the poor in a competitive model. And I mean, what good is a society, and what is the point in paying taxes to a system that can't even help those who need it the most? Like all industries, healthcare is a business. The more healthcare providers can add to your bill, the better. They want to make as much money per customer as they can. It's profitable for them to write prescriptions, order tests, perform surgery, and administer treatments. And because of money, healthcare practitioners rely on repeat business the same as other industries. I don't know if you're aware of this, but a healthy population is bad for business in the healthcare industry. I know that many people are pro-vaccine, and I respect their stance, but wouldn't it be nice if we could eliminate profit motives from the process so we can get honest answers from medical practitioners? There's no money to be made in a cure, and that's fine as we move into an era that no longer needs to be concerned with turning a profit. A healthy population and a sharing model means less of a labor demand on the healthcare profession and will no longer be in conflict with financial needs. Without budget restrictions, we are free to use the best materials and take our time to produce only top-notch products. As fear of going without evaporates, people will likely stop filling their homes with excess possessions, and a new type of carpooling might emerge. You can collect cars if you want to, but I think most people will prefer the extra space in their home over storing a vehicle once they start seeing eco-friendly supercars with no security features available for communal use dominating the curb space in every neighborhood. With budget restrictions out of the way, we can start reshaping society in a way that makes sense. Emergency services will likely change. It doesn't make sense to me to call 911 and wait for someone from the hospital to come pick you up and take you to the medicine and professionals. With more free time and to be productive members of society, numerous people in every community will likely be trained and equipped to handle crisis situations. Getting the help you need should be as easy as shouting help. When a situation arises, it will likely be your neighbors responding, not strangers from another city. They'll have a vested interest in keeping their community safe and peaceful. Imprisonment will be a last resort, whereas today, maximum incarceration is pushed in order to meet financial quotas. Sharing will have a very profound effect on our social lives. It's going to affect everything from the way we treat each other to the way we raise our children. Here's some of the things that I see changing if the world shares. Social interactions will be less stressed and more authentic. Now, this may vary from one area to the next, but I think some places will adopt a different style of raising children. It might be done as a community instead of parents shouldering the bulk of the responsibility during the most productive years of their life. I think changing career paths is going to be a lot easier. I believe a typical work week will be much shorter. 20 hours is probably a conservative guess. And even though everyone's going to have everything they want and need in abundance, we're still going to have a lot more free space. We can begin reclaiming a lot of wasted space once we eliminate lines, waiting rooms, and a lot of parking structures that are not needed anymore. If we're sharing, that includes technology. The collective technology of all humanity will be available to use by all. Shelved technology will come off the shelves and be put into production. Additionally, the financial motives to not share technology will be gone. This frees humanity up of copyrights and trade secrets. This will allow for not only the use of technology by everyone, it will allow previously competitive entities to work together. Apple can work with PC and Android. Ford can work with Toyota, etc. There's going to be a lot less red tape when companies and government bodies no longer have to worry about getting sued. Profit incentives are at the root of police brutality, war, genocide, and other forms of violence. Almost all incentives to steal, kill, and destroy will evaporate once we share as a species. I just want to make it clear, I'm not advocating socialism or communism. This isn't a cult. I know the world is a little gun-shy from all the blowback of government actions and crusades against any mention of sharing. I think of sharing as an evolution of the species, not as a form of governance. I'm not advocating any form of violence, takeover, or hostility. I'm advocating an evolution of our species through education and understanding. The list of reasons why people think that sharing won't work is very short. The largest obstacle is convincing the world to make this evolution. The second objection I get most often is that people may either abuse the system or there would be a lack of incentive for people to work. And I disagree with those notions outright, but even if that were an obstacle, I would much prefer having to solve that problem if it arises, rather than the plethora of atrocities caused by competition for resources. I got tired as a peace activist of fighting so many issues, and now that I understand the root problem, I understand that the issues I was fighting were symptoms stemming from that one root cause. Each issue I fought led to the discovery of 20 more issues. I'm certain that this is the only way to solve humanity's problems, as it addresses the root cause of them. This is the cure, and it's the only cure. But, on the upside, this is the only struggle the working class will ever have to win against the wealthy. Many people have told me that sharing will not happen, but I disagree. Since this solution fixes everything, it should be very appealing to everyone. If you agree with me, please share this video with the hashtag #SharingFixesEverything. Please help me spread the word, and thank you for your time.